From the London Center in Phoenix, it's the Pat McMahon Show.
You're also going to be finding out about what it's like to have 9 children. And excuse the facial tic, but having had a few myself, I can't even imagine. And I particularly can't imagine having had biological children, then being the kind of person who says, you know what, there are lonely children who need parents in different countries. Boom, family picks Russia and brings kids over to enhance their lives. And I dare say yours, too. You're going to find out about international adoptions, and you're going to find out a great deal that you didn't know before, and probably have questions answered that you have had for a while. Like, well, okay, but what about all the paperwork? And once I decide on a child, can the country then from which that child came and originated, can that country and its government decide that no, they changed their minds and you can't have that child? We've heard about stories like that. How much does it cost? And what about American kids that are sitting in institutions with no families? All of that. You ever thought about adopting? I did. I had biological babies and adopted a couple and thought it was a great idea. But all I had to do actually was just simply go down the street. I didn't have to go to Moscow to do it. And our guest did. And as a matter of fact, before you meet the guest, I want you to meet his family, okay? Here they are. Take a look at this good-looking crowd, huh? And you know what, John? One of the things that I took particular notice when I was looking at this picture, you can't tell who was born in America, and you can't tell who was born in Russia. They're all Simmons.
They are.
Boy, I'm telling you, it's quite an achievement to just simply make that kind of decision. The first time you and your wife ever sat down and said, okay, well, we have our own biological children. How about if we go someplace else and adopt? What was that situation? Where were you?
You know, it's not quite as Boy Scout as it sounds. We had 3 biological sons and we wanted daughters. And we couldn't have any more biological children, so we started looking into having daughters. As we got involved with the adoption agencies and trying to decide what would be best for our family, we went through a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the different things that need to be done, and eventually we ended up adopting Jack. He's now 12 and he has Down syndrome, and we adopted him as an infant. Our families joked that we couldn't even adopt a girl. And Jack was about 8 before we started moving forward again. And adopting within the United States, it was very difficult to get a child without special needs. Where we already had children.
And you say it was no Boy Scout thing. It was nothing for a merit badge. I mean, come on, John, please don't give me humility when we're talking about adopting, first of all, a child with Down syndrome and all of the extra work and effort and energy that necessitates.
You know, with Jack, there was a little bit of Boy Scout in him, but it didn't work out for us because we adopted Jack thinking that there was nothing in it for us. But as time went on, Jack brought things to the family that nobody else brought. If you've ever been around a person with Down syndrome, there's unconditional love.
Absolutely. I've never seen anything like it.
And Jack has brought far more to our family than we'll ever give to him.
You know, truly, if you're an agnostic or an atheist and you start thinking, well, okay, tell me something I can believe in, and you just think, well, okay, why would the powers that be over children, God, Marie, whatever it is that you want to call the powers that be, why would that happen constantly with Down syndrome kids? It seems as if somebody provides all of that extra affection.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Trying to answer the questions of what to believe in or how to believe, you know, I'm not a religionist. The book tries to make the point, I believe in family. And while I definitely am not an agnostic. I do have my beliefs in the powers that be. The book doesn't try to push it that hard. It tries to push, I believe, in family.
Oh, the book that we're talking about, by the way, you would think that if you were going to have the kind of experiences and personal adventures that John Simmons has had, biological children, adopting special needs children, then going to Russia and adopting children over there, that would be story enough. But no, John decided he was going to write a novel. And here it is. Look at this cover. You know what? I would buy this book. If you hadn't sent us one from the publishers for free, I would buy this because of the cover. It's one of the most beautiful covers. Everybody in the station was commenting about this, and our congratulations to you and the publisher for picking that face. And the story behind it has to do with your Russian adventures.
Yeah.
So when did you and your wife decide, okay, let's go to a country? Had you ever been there before?
No.
Did you speak Russian?
Not at all.
All of the reasons why it is that you would decide to adopt Russian children. Why? Why did you decide to go there?
You mentioned you can't tell in that family who's adopted and who's not. And with adoption, you kind of pick your problems. With biological children, you just kind of take what comes out of the hat. But with adoption, you can kind of pick it. And while we went through, and there were definitely some problems and things that would need to be overcome with these kids, one of the things that we chose against was a family that didn't look the same. And that wasn't as much for mom and dad as it was for the kids. We wanted them to feel like they fit in. At the time, Russia was the most stable country for international adoption, where we could adopt children who looked like our other children.
How was your experience, though, with the adoption process with Russia? I continue to hear about success stories, but also some of the horror stories that families have had.
Yeah, there's a lot of bureaucracy in dealing with Russia. Russia has over 750,000 kids in orphanages right now. The estimates are that there are 2 million children on the streets. And with all of that, Russia takes a very practical view on it.
And what is this?
That's the orphanage where Celeste came from. But Russia's attitude is that they can get, if the child that you're working on right now doesn't work out, they can get you another one that looks just like him. And that's kind of the take that they have on it.
Not a great deal of value placed in the children themselves?
You know what? Russia has so many economic problems and different things like that that it's one of the many problems that they deal with. I wouldn't say that they don't put value in the children. The orphanage workers treated our children like they were students in a school. They reminded me of good school teachers.
Because we've seen some documentaries on places like the History Channel and the Discovery Channel and 60 Minutes having to do with some of the institutions in Romania. You just say, whoa, wait a minute, hold it. I want some of those children, but then again, I don't know whether I can handle the problems that go with them physically and emotionally and mentally. We're going to be talking about a lot of those facets when we return with our conversation with John Simmons, international adoption advocate, author of The Marvelous Journey Home. I got to show you this cover again. I mean, that is absolutely one of the most beautiful book covers I've ever seen in my life. And could you ever resist a child like that? Maybe not after you hear John Simmons talk about the rest of the experiences that his family's had. When we return on the Pat McMahon Show on AZTV. You know, by the way, I've showed you the cover of this book a couple of times and did not acknowledge this, I started to say this professional model, but she just looks like she belongs on the cover of a book. Who is this?
This is my daughter Celeste. She's 5 now. That picture was taken in Moscow just before we came home. It was an actual picture, but it was fed into a watercolor program to soften it up a bit for the book cover.
Yeah, well, it's gorgeous, and so is she. Why the explosion of international adoptions in the last few years?
It's become very difficult to adopt the kids that were easiest to place years ago in the United States. And by that I mean children without special needs, which could mean anything from children who are older to children of different races to children with mental or physical handicaps. And because there are less children like that available in the United States than there were 20 years ago, people have gone overseas looking.
What about the paperwork and all of the bureaucracy that goes into adopting a child anywhere internationally, much less Russia?
You know, the bureaucracy